Michael Jackson has been dead for 10 years, and this 2 new cases.
Sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
Michael Jackson was molesting children. Well, what were those kids wearing at the time?
Michael Jackson was never hurting those children at Neverland. He was protecting them. And his name came up in the Jeffrey Epstein files because Jeffrey hated him, because he was intercepting that man from taking kids to the island.
Michael Jackson was the biggest name on the planet, not just in music, but in everything, and that kind of visibility and power makes you a target. The moment you reach a level where the whole world knows your name, there are people watching you, waiting for a crack in the wall. What we're going to talk about is a pattern that a lot of people in Hollywood have been quietly speaking about for years, but nobody wanted to say it too loud or too clearly. Dave Chappelle said something about it. Jim Carrey has hinted at it through his public statements about how the entertainment industry really operates, and when you sit with both of those perspectives together, and then go back and look at what actually happened to Michael Jackson during the 1993 allegations and the 2005 trial, something starts to feel very off about the whole story we were sold. Not conspiracy theory stuff or fan fiction, but actual documented facts, recorded conversations, court records, and the words of people who were in the room. Here is something that Michael Jackson's own lawyer, Tom Mesereau, said after the 2005 trial ended and his client walked free on every single charge. He said, and I'm putting this in my own words here, that celebrities are targets, full stop. People try to use their fame to build a reputation or make money at their expense. And that quote wasn't just a defense lawyer blowing smoke. Mesereau meant it as a real observation about how power works in Hollywood.
You said that you never doubted that you would win the case against Michael Jackson. Why were you so sure?
Because I thought the case was built on sand. It was a case built on falsehoods. It never should have been brought. And I really thought this jury had what it took.
Well, it was our opinion, and I think we proved it, that this family began to come up with these allegations of molestation and conspiracy only when they realized that they were on the way out, that Michael Jackson was sick of them, didn't want to deal with them anymore, didn't want them on his property. They were calling him daddy. They appeared to want a future with Michael Jackson that he didn't want with them. So our theory was that as soon as they realized they were being eased out, they needed to do something else to stay involved in his life and get a big payday, and this is what they came up with. We only called witnesses we thought had something important to tell a jury, and that includes the celebrities we called. Now, Jay Leno was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department and secretly recorded by the sheriffs. He didn't know he was being recorded. And he told them words to the effect that this family had contacted him, that the 13-year-old accuser had tried repeatedly to get through to him, and that finally he had a conversation with him. He said that the 13-year-old sounded, overly rehearsed, sounded scripted. There seemed to be a woman in the background, directing what he said. And he got a bad feeling about what this young man was saying to him. And he thought they wanted money, although they didn't actually ask for it. And after that conversation, he told the staff not to let them put any calls through to him again. Now, just so you know, his lawyer didn't want him to testify. And when I first called his lawyer tried to say that he didn't remember what had happened. And I told his lawyer that we had a recording of the phone call, and his lawyer was shocked to hear that because he didn't know there'd been a secret recording, nor had he heard it. And I said, maybe you'd like me to send it to you. And I sent it to him, and I said, look, we're going to subpoena him. He can get on the stand, and if he doesn't remember, we're going to refresh his recollection with this recording, and I don't think that's the way you want this to happen. Now, George Lopez was called by the prosecution. If they hadn't called him, we were going to talk about their efforts to get money from him, even going so far as to accuse him of stealing money from the child's wallet. Chris Tucker had interacted with this family on numerous occasions. He felt they took him for a ride. I remember him telling me when I first met him that he was told this child had cancer. He wanted to help them out. He invited them to the set in Las Vegas of Rush Hour 1. He thought they would spend a day, and they ended up spending, I think it was 10 days or 2 weeks, and billing him for the entire amount. And he went to Michael Jackson in Florida and said, be careful, something's wrong. Michael Jackson used to have a rule that every time he gave a concert around the world, he would visit a children's hospital to be as good to children and as kind to them as possible. He wanted to help this child overcome cancer, and he took great pride in the fact that he had had something to do with this child going into remission and beating cancer. He never saw the forces of darkness that were circling his life, and it's very sad.
Think about where Michael Jackson was in the early 1990s. He had just wrapped the Bad World Tour. Thriller was still the best-selling album in history, and he had a direct line to every major deal and creative decision in the music industry. He had real leverage and was worth more than most corporations. He was a black man in America, holding that kind of weight in that era. People with that much power attract a lot of attention. Some of it is genuine admiration, but some of it is something else entirely. When you have what Michael had, you are also sitting on top of something that other people want. His Sony Music Publishing deal alone was worth billions. His catalog, influence, brand partnerships, all of it was in play. So when we start asking questions about why things went the way they did, we have to ask the uncomfortable first question. Who actually had the most to gain from watching Michael Jackson fall? Let's start with 1993, because that is where the story really begins.
Before you all met Michael Jackson, what did he mean to you?
I saw the making of Thriller, just instantly became obsessed. I wanted to be just like, and I dressed like him every day and did my hair and had my hair permed to look like him and all that stuff.
I wasn't necessarily a big fan. And then when I got the commercial,
Mr. Jackson?
The
Pepsi commercial.
Yeah, the Pepsi commercial. When You See Me Meet Him is actually my first time seeing him. At that point I was pretty excited. It was otherworldly, I guess.
James Safechuck and Wade Robson discuss the intimate details of their relationships with Michael Jackson
Everybody wanted to meet Michael or be with Michael.
in the upcoming HBO documentary Leaving Neverland. That's the name of Jackson's ranch, where Robson claims 7 years of world-famous performer first began.
I mean, this was just the most magical thing I'd ever seen. And that first night, Michael just kind of took us on a little bit of a tour, and he said to me and my sister, you can stay in one of the guest rooms or you can stay in here with me if you want. And my reaction was, of course I want to stay with you. We had one more night that way. Myself and my family were going to leave and go on another kind of vacation to the Grand Canyon. I was devastated to leave Michael. Michael was devastated for me to leave. He actually sobbed.
So you got to stay.
So I got to stay. And so it was just Michael and I in Neverland for the next week.
And your parents allowed that?
My parents allowed that. Within either the first or second night of Michael and I being alone at Neverland, the night started changing. One of the ways I remember it starting is, Michael just sort of starting to touch my legs and touch my crotch over my pants. It progressed to him performing oral on me, him showing me how to perform oral on him.
Did it scare you? Did you think it was wrong?
A couple days prior to the starting, he started touching me, just in the sense of panned on my leg, lots of hugs, kissing my forehead, rubbing my hands. So there had been this kind of development of physical closeness that was happening already that felt like a father. It just felt amazing. As Michael started doing these he started talking to me about God brought us together. We love each other, and this is how we
love each other.
We love each other, and this is how we show each other our love.
Jordan Chandler's father, Evan Chandler, was a dentist and a screenwriter based in Los Angeles. He had met Michael through his son's stepfather, who owned a car rental agency. Michael befriended the family, spent time with them at Neverland, and by mid-1993, things had turned seriously complicated. Evan Chandler and his lawyer approached Michael's team with a demand. According to documented records, the initial figure discussed was $20 million, framed around funding film projects. Michael refused to pay. Here's where it gets interesting. Before Jordan ever made any allegation himself, Evan Chandler had already contacted a psychiatrist who, without meeting either Jordan or Michael, wrote a letter stating that reasonable suspicion of a might exist. That letter was used to apply pressure. When that pressure didn't produce the result Evan wanted, the allegations went to the police. A criminal investigation was launched. Police searched Neverland, They interviewed over 30 children who had been around Michael. Every single one of them defended him. The investigation found no physical evidence. A high-ranking police source told the Los Angeles Times at the time that the search warrant had not produced anything that could support a criminal filing. The case that was supposed to end Michael Jackson ended with a civil settlement, not a conviction.
James, you're nodding in agreement to what he's saying. Tell me what happened to you.
He introduced me to masturbation. He said I taught him how to French kiss. And then it moves on to oral sex. But
Are you frightened or thinking this is weird or wrong?
No, it's in the context of a loving, close relationship. There's no alarm bells going off in your head or any thoughts like that. Really, it's just, I love this person and we're trying to make each other happy. He said, I was his first, but even as a kid, you don't even know what that means. So you're lovers and you're best friends.
What does that mean, James? You're in a relationship and you're lovers. You're a little boy.
Right.
And he's a 30-something man, and you're a little boy. Because at that age, how do you even know what that means?
You don't. You just feel really connected to someone, and you just love them intensely.
The public in general thinks it's violent, that it's very painful, but what you're describing is totally the opposite of that.
I mean, he didn't beat me. He didn't, he never said mean things to me. It was all, we love each other.
In spite of what they're claiming today, in 1993, both Robson and Safechuck denied being molested by Jackson when allegations were brought by another boy, Jordan Chandler. That case settled out of court. You all both tell a very descriptive story about, with Michael Jackson, yet when you were asked to testify in 2005, and Wade, you did. You got on the stand and you testified in his behalf and vehemently denied that any sexual had taken place.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
The training, Michael's training of me to testify began the first night that he started abusing me. He started telling me that if anybody else ever finds out, we'll both go to jail. Both of our lives will be over.
The 2005 criminal trial of Michael Jackson centered on molestation charges brought by a child cancer survivor named Gavin Arvizo. Court testimony shows that from the stand, Wade Robson denied ever kissing, showering, or even cuddling with Jackson. They credit your testimony in part for Michael's acquittal. You were called really a star witness. You withstood a blistering cross-examination, and he was acquitted. On some level, do you feel guilty about that now? Do you think about that?
Yeah, I do think about that. I have, and I do. I wish that I was ready. I wish that I could have helped Gavin Arvizo receive some justice and some validation for what happened to him. It was just like what happened to me and just like what happened to James. And I wish that I could have played a role in, at that point, stopping Michael from abusing however many other kids he did after that.
Do you think that there are others out there?
I do think there are others out there, but I also don't expect them to just come out now that we're coming out. It's such a difficult thing to do, to come out. You have to do it when you're ready.
We can't change what happened to us. It happened, it's done. But what can we do with it now? How can we provide comfort for other survivors? That's what this is about. And Michael just happens to be the guy, in this child's.
There's a detail from the 1993 case that does not get nearly enough attention, and I think it's one of the most telling pieces of the whole situation. Before any accusations became public, there was a phone call, a recorded conversation between Evan Chandler and Jordan's stepfather, David Schwartz. In that call, Evan laid out his thinking. He talked about having a plan, about winning big, about going to war. The recording was later used by Michael's legal team and was eventually made public.
This man is going to be humiliated beyond belief. He will not believe it. He will not believe what's going to happen. Beyond his worst nightmares. Sell one more record. This attorney I found, I interviewed several, and I picked the nastiest son of a to find. Once I make that phone call, this guy is just going to destroy everybody in sight. Any devious, nasty, cruel way that he can do it. And I've given him full authority to do that. It'll be a massacre if I don't get what I want. If I go through with this, I win big time. I will get everything I want, and they will be destroyed forever. They will be destroyed. June is going to lose Jordy. She will have no right to ever see him again.
Yeah.
That's a fact, Dave. That's what's
Does that help?
Michael's career will be over.
Does that help Jordy?
Michael's career will be over.
And does that help Jordy?
It's irrelevant to me.
Evan reportedly said on that tape that if he didn't get what he wanted, he would destroy Michael Jackson. This story would be so bad, so damaging, that Michael would never recover. His own brother Ray Chandler later wrote a book called All That Glitters, and in it, he described how Evan had pressured Jordan using intimidation and deception to get him to say what Evan needed him to say. Jordan Chandler himself, after becoming an emancipated minor at 16 and distancing himself from both of his parents, refused to testify against Michael Jackson in 2005. He refused every opportunity. One of his college friends later appeared in a 2019 documentary and claimed that Jordan had told him the allegations were never true. Fast forward to 2019, Dave Chappelle drops his Netflix special Sticks and Stones, and he goes there. He talks about Michael Jackson. He says plainly that he does not believe the accusers from the HBO documentary that came out that year, the one where two men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, came forward with accounts of during their childhoods.
Michael Jackson has been dead for 10 years, and this 2 new cases. And if you haven't watched that documentary, then I'm begging you, don't watch it. It's gross. I felt like HBO was sticking baby dicks in my ears for 4 hours straight. Really nasty. I don't want to know all these things. Turns out, Michael Jackson allegedly likes a long gander at the anus. So they said he stares at people's buttholes. That's what they said. That's how gross the documentary was. I'm gonna say something that I'm not allowed to say. But I gotta be real. I don't believe these motherfuckers. I do not believe it. But let me qualify the statement. I am what's known on the streets as a victim blamer. You know what I mean? Somebody come up to me like, Dave, Chris Brown just beat up Rihanna. I'll be like, well, what did she do? Dave, Michael Jackson was molesting children. Well, what were those kids wearing at the time? I don't think he did it. But you know what? Even if he did do it, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I mean, it's Michael Jackson. I know more than half the people in this room have been molested in their lives. But it wasn't no goddamn Michael Jackson, was it? This kid got his dick sucked by the king of pop. All we get is awkward Thanksgivings for the rest of our lives. You know how good it must have felt to go to school the next day after that? Hey, Billy, how was the weekend? How was my weekend? Michael Jackson sucked my dick. And that was my first sex experience. If I'm starting here, then well, sky's the limit. I know it seems harsh, but man, somebody's got to teach these kids. There's no such thing as a free trip to Hawaii. He's gonna want to look at your butthole or something. You know why I don't believe it? You know why I don't believe it? Because if Michael Jackson's out here doing all this molesting, then why not Macaulay Culkin? Macaulay Culkin said in an interview that Michael Jackson never did anything inappropriate with him or even around him. Think about that shit.
Now, I want to be very clear about what Chappelle was actually doing at that moment, because it gets misread a lot. He was not being reckless. Dave Chappelle is someone who has spent most of his career studying the mechanics of power and how it operates on people. He walked away from $50 million at the height of his career because something about the deal did not sit right with him. He went to South Africa. He came back different. And everything he has said since then has been measured in ways people underestimate because it is delivered as comedy. What Chappelle was pushing back on in that special was the idea that a documentary made by an outlet with its own interests, released 15 years after Michael's death, when Michael could no longer speak for himself, should be taken as settled truth. He was questioning the structure of it, the timing of it, the fact that both Robson and Safechuck had previously testified under oath that nothing had happened, before later changing their accounts. The documentary's director was furious. The estate called the accusers liars. The whole thing became a culture war. But Chappelle did not back down. Carrey is an interesting figure to bring into this conversation because he has never spoken about Michael Jackson specifically in a direct, on-record way that you can pull a clean quote from. What he has done over many years is talk about how Hollywood actually functions, how fame is manufactured and managed, and how people at the top of the industry are not always who they appear to be. He has been quite vocal about the psychological cost of extreme fame and the ways in which the system protects itself. Carrey has spoken about how celebrities are used, how their images are built up, and when it becomes necessary, torn down. He has talked in interviews about the pressures that come with being inside that world and seeing things that the public does not see. He said something once along the lines of fame being a mask that eats your face. And while that sounds poetic, anyone who has studied his statements closely knows he was talking about something real and specific about the industry. When you place that perspective alongside what happened to Michael Jackson, a pattern becomes visible. Michael was one of the few artists in history who actually owned his masters, who had a direct stake in the business infrastructure of music, and who had enough independence that he did not need to play by anyone else's rules. That kind of position does not make you friends in an industry built on control. His lawyer Mazzaro said it outright. Celebrities are targets.
The 2005 trial must have been one of the most difficult and unique cases to have worked on. How did you both come about becoming Michael's representatives?
I had known Randy Jackson for many years. We used to get together socially every once in a while. And when his brother was in trouble, he called and asked if we would represent Michael. At first we couldn't because we were involved in another high-profile homicide case, but eventually we had a falling out with that client, and then Randy called again, said, are you both free? We want you to defend Michael Jackson, and one thing led to another.
How has working with Michael affected you from both a personal and career aspect?
No question changed my career. Without a question, people, I think, no question, identify you with Michael because he was such a big name, more so than any other case. We have handled other high-profile clients, but people are not really interested in hearing about those cases. They're more interested in hearing about Michael, even though it was 5-6 years ago. So it's no question, it really had a big impact on my career.
And Tom, I remember you mentioning in the documentary that the media often portrayed negative elements and completely disregarded the positive factors that you were displaying. How frustrating was that, and how did you deal with all the media attention?
The way to deal with the media during that trial was to basically shut them out. My view of the media was somewhere between suspicion and contempt. I focused, and we focused, on 13 people, the judge and 12 jurors. They were the most important people in that case. Basically, we lived like hermits. We had our compound with our staff and all of our evidence. We had one war room, we called it, with about 4,000 binders of documents, and all we did was focus on the evidence in the courtroom. We pretty much ignored the media.
So for 5 months, I understand that you were working with Michael for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. What was it like working with him through such an intense time?
He was one of the easiest clients to represent, the easiest. Most people in that kind of situation, most criminal defendants, behave a little bit differently. But Michael was very, very easy in that, not controlling. Had complete confidence in his lawyers, in us, and wanted to just hang on to his faith.
And what are your thoughts on the current trial surrounding Michael's death?
The Conrad Murray trial? I haven't really followed it on a daily basis. From what I've heard and seen and a little, I think that the prosecution is presenting a very good case, and I think that Dr. Murray should get convicted because what he did was completely unacceptable, and he's guilty.
And Tom, I know that you previously claimed that when Dr. Conrad Murray gave Michael Jackson the propofol, he violated every ethical obligation he had as his doctor. Do you still stand by that?
Yes, I've been following the case closely and commenting on it a lot. I think what he did was completely unacceptable, unprofessional, and illegal. He may have been a fine doctor for other patients, but when he met Michael Jackson, he threw all of his ethical concerns out the window. He got carried away with being Michael Jackson's physician. He did things that were completely unacceptable, and he cost Michael Jackson his life, and I think he should be convicted as well.
In 2005, Michael Jackson stood trial on 10 criminal counts: molestation, conspiracy, administering alcohol to a minor, the full weight of the California legal system bearing down on one man. The trial was described as a media circus. Cameras were not allowed inside the courtroom. But that did not stop the coverage from running ahead of the evidence at every turn. Late-night hosts made jokes. Tabloids printed front pages before the jury had even deliberated. In the court of public opinion, a verdict had already been delivered. The actual jury did something different. They deliberated for roughly 30 hours across 7 days and went through the evidence carefully. They came back not guilty on every single count. 9 jurors voted to acquit on the first ballot.
In their words, let a pedophile go free. Hear now the pressure you never saw behind closed doors. Was the jury one big happy family when you went into the deliberation room?
I think prior to deliberations, I think that there was some camaraderie. It wasn't really until we got into the deliberation room and found out what was in people's minds that we realized that we're not all in the same key here.
So it really surprised me when everybody seemed to turn and get so mean.
You go back into the jury room, start deliberating. After a few hours, you have sort of an unofficial vote. What were the results?
About 2/3 of the jury were considering Michael Jackson as not guilty at that time.
And where were you?
I was on the guilty side.
No, you were the first one to say
guilty.
Guilty.
Yes, ma'am.
She said it in a big way.
I said
right away.
I said it in a big way, and they came after me with a vengeance. I really got attacked.
How so?
I didn't understand. I didn't know. I was too old.
And there was a third juror, Katerina Carls, a 39-year-old county government worker, who tells us that she too initially believed Jackson was guilty.
Very bright
She
lady.
was very bright. She had taken a lot of notes. She knew exactly what was going on. And it amazed me when one of the other jurors challenged this particular juror that she may not really know too much about the American justice system because she had only been a citizen for 2 years.
How tough did it get for the two of you and this other juror? There you are, 3 of you holding out, and the other 9 are livid.
You wind up thinking, okay, if I stay with my convictions, that I believe that Michael Jackson is a child molester and that he did in fact molest this accuser, then what's the next thing that could happen? Okay, you probably wind up with a hung jury. You wind up with a mistrial, whatever. With this kind of cloud hanging over your head, and you're thinking, I've spent 5 months of my life in this trial, and nobody's going to kick me off of this trial until it's over.
I then asked Ray and Ellie about the jury foreman, 63-year-old Paul Rodriguez, a retired school counselor. To hear Ray tell it, it was Ray himself who sometimes acted as foreman.
The person that was selected as the foreperson, I think he was overwhelmed with his responsibility into thinking that he was primarily a go-between between the deliberators and the judge. There was one point where Ellie had stated her opinion. It was very early in the deliberation, and immediately the foreman starts complaining about inflexibility, and I just quite frankly turned to the foreman and said, I think you're being totally unfair.
Jurors spoke to the press afterward and were very specific about why. They said the prosecution's case was weak. They found the key witness testimony inconsistent and, in some cases, not credible. One juror described the mother of the accuser as a scam artist. The New York Times characterized her testimony as rambling and combative. The prosecution never found physical evidence. The FBI, which had investigated Michael Jackson for a decade, closed its files after his death with no credible evidence and no outstanding leads. His defense attorney, Mesereau, issued a statement the day the verdict came in. Justice is done. The man's innocent. He always was. Michael Jackson never returned to Neverland after the trial. He was broken. Here's what I think Dave Chappelle understood, and what Jim Carrey has been circling in his own way for years. Hollywood is not a meritocracy. It is a structure, and structures do not like people who operate outside them. Michael Jackson spent the last decade of his life trying to reclaim himself. He was preparing for a comeback. 50 concerts. In London, this is it. A genuine attempt to remind the world who he was before all of it. He died in June 2009 before he got there. After his death, the allegations kept coming. New documentaries, lawsuits, and every time there was renewed interest in his music, renewed celebration of his legacy, something would appear to drag the conversation back into the dark. The timing of the HBO documentary in 2019, for instance, coincided with renewed global interest in his catalog and ongoing legal battles over his estate.
One of the major revelations from the Epstein files is that Michael Jackson appears to have been framed by the very people who actually were doing the abusing of children. If you don't recall, in the 1990s, Michael Jackson was accused of abusing specifically young boys. One case led to a civil settlement, which Jackson later said he wished he had not done. He wished he had fought it in court. Another did lead to a criminal trial, and he was acquitted on all charges.
However, this inclusion seems politically motivated when you look at the nature of these photos. Like this picture of Michael Jackson and Epstein, where it's unclear when or where it was taken because this photo dump was done without providing locations, dates, or context. There's also this alleged bodyguard statement about the nature of the photo, which does seem to, clear Michael Jackson and lay out his innocence. But I mean, after all, it is still just a random post on the internet, and who knows how true it is. And again, this picture itself doesn't link Michael to any specific Epstein crime. And apparently there's even testimony of one Epstein victim having met Michael through Jeffrey, but there was no substantiation of Michael's involvement in any of the sorts of crimes Jeffrey had been known to involve himself in, allow his third parties, his accomplices, to take part in. And then we have this other photo of Michael with Bill Clinton, with some children's faces being edited out of the photo. And understandably, at first glance, this is a pretty unsettling image. However, the woman in the picture with Michael and Bill is actually none other than Diana Ross. And the kids in this picture are actually Diana's and Michael's kids, not victims of any Epstein-related crime. And we know this because this picture was taken around a highly publicized DNC fundraiser that Michael was involved in at the Apollo. So you have to ask, why would a seemingly innocuous image of Michael and Bill Clinton be tossed into this just massive document dump around one of the most notorious criminals in our modern times? Because look, despite Michael's history and despite Bill Clinton's history, there is a possibility, I would say maybe even a probability, that these two could have been in the same place at the same time for completely uncontroversial reasons, not related to any kind of criminal activity whatsoever. So yeah, I'm just saying from my own perspective, there does seem to be some heavy spin involved in what is being shown and what isn't. And if you don't believe me, interestingly, there have been some further removals of images and material since the original release of this first wave of documents. As has been reported by numerous outlets, we have this series of PDF images in which there is a number missing in this ongoing sequence of many different pictures. And apparently the photo that was removed was this one over here, which actually has Trump's smirking face in it. This photo of him and Melania and Jeff and Ghislaine, of course, that has been spread across the internet for years now. So Trump and the DOJ clearly got caught with their pants down here, tried to remove this picture, but then ended up posting it back up after the public outcry in reaction to its removal, claiming this picture being taken down had nothing to do with Trump or politics in the first place. So yeah, again, to kind of close things up here, I'm not coming on here to claim that Michael Jackson has never done anything weird or questionable, but his inclusion in these photos does seem to be a sort of sleight of hand on some level. Like, oh hey, look at the major superstar celebrity hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. That's the kind of person that he used to involve himself with, not the guy who is the president right now.
We live in a moment right now where the you-know-what files are in public conversation, where names attached to serious crimes involving children in powerful circles are finally being discussed openly. People are going back and asking questions about cases that felt settled. They are asking who was protected and who was not. They are asking who got to be believed and who got buried under a media pile-on. Michael Jackson's story has to be part of that reckoning, not because everything is answered, but because the questions have never been asked fairly. Here's where I land on all of this. Michael Jackson was acquitted twice. He was investigated by the FBI for 10 years, and they found nothing that could stand up. His own accusers' testimonies were inconsistent. The man who started the 1993 case had a documented financial motive and was caught on tape talking about destroying Michael before a single formal allegation had been filed. His son refused to testify against him in court, and his defense attorney called the charges completely bogus. Yet Michael Jackson died having never fully recovered from what was done to his reputation. He left Neverland and never went back and spent his final years abroad, restless, grieving something that could not be returned to him. Dave Chappelle said what a lot of people in that industry were thinking, but would not say out loud. Jim Carrey has spent years pointing at the machinery that makes and breaks people in Hollywood, even when it cost him. The question is not whether Michael Jackson was perfect. The question is whether what happened to him was justice or something else entirely masquerading as it. So I want to leave you with this. If the system can do that to the most famous man on earth and nobody blinked, what does that tell you about who the system is actually designed to protect? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on any new videos. And until then, fam, keep it real.